Hello, everybody. I am Bradley Davis, and I'm here with Will Soki. Will, say hey to the folks.
Hey to the folks. Bradley, you are the man with the plan, the man with two hands, Mr.
Oh,
Davis,
you're saying
if you're
it.
feeling funny. And boy, am I so glad to be here with you on this unofficial 2024 Show Choir Wrapped. I mean, this is such a big deal. We are coming off of Show Choir Nationals here. And also, just right off the top here, you see that Discord link at the bottom of your screen. At the back half of this show, we will be taking audience call ins. This is, dare I say, the first ever Show Choir live stream with audience call ins. So hit that Discord link right now if you're a gamer, download Discord, and then hit that link if you're not a gamer. And we look forward to seeing you in the second half of the show. Bradley, how is your Sunday going?
I am experiencing what many students all across the nation have experienced the day after a show choir competition. The coveted show choir hangover is hitting me in such great fashion. But I'm glad to be here. We usually work the day after show choir competition, so we're used to kind of just moving through it. But I feel great. I feel excited. It's going to be so nice to recap and talk about some of these amazing groups and all the passion that we saw on the stage.
That's right. And we do want to give a shout to the people backstage here as well. We are on the main stage, but the people behind the curtain, this is brought to you by showchoir.com. So a big shout out to Hawken, who is the main producer for this show. And then also his engineer, Blake, who is an alumnus of the John Burroughs Powerhouse Tech Crew. So just right off the top of the show here, we want to give a big shout out to the people who are making this show all run. Bradley, you mentioned that you are in a show choir hangover.
Yes.
Why? What competition did you go to that put you in a show choir hangover?
I attended the Show Choir Nationals competition, which I believe is the 20th anniversary for it, if I'm not mistaken. And it was tremendous. We saw a lot of amazing groups, and I believe we're going to get into that. I think that the drive there and the drive back did a little bit more damage than the actual competition did to me. But yeah, it was fantastic. From top to bottom, there were so many amazing groups there. So yeah, it was really nice.
Well, Nationals is weird because you've got two morning divisions on Friday and Saturday. So, for those of us who have never made it to Nationals, what was it like having finals run from 9 a.m. to noon on a Saturday morning?
It was strange, in a good way, in a really good way, because it. I've never left a competition that early before in my life, and it was really nice to see the kids still put out the same amount of energy that we typically would have seen at a late night performance, and even the like finals announcements awards and everything. The only later shows were the single gender division, and so it was kind of cool. I don't mind it. I think I don't think most people minded having the shows in that early and having the rest of their day. I definitely needed the 6.5 hours to get back home. So it was much appreciated. But yeah, like I said, energy level, if anything, they were in really good shape compared to what I've seen with competitions that go later days. So yeah.
Phenomenal. And you were there. I was not. There was no live stream. So, who were a couple of the standout groups that perhaps didn't get all the headlines in your opinion?
Oh, definitely Cedar Rapids Kennedy was the group. And as an analyst, we look at the community predictions a lot, and they weren't even listed in the top six. I thankfully I don't have like a hill to die on. Like I didn't do predictions aside from saying, hey, I like this group. But thankfully I wasn't one of the people who slept on them. You did great. Shout out to Cedar Rapids Kennedy. They when I saw them perform, I was like, oh yeah, this is like I couldn't say it was a finals worthy performance at the time because there were so many amazing groups, and the point difference I believe in prelims was so small between the groups that were around like the fourth to even 10th place that I mean just so many amazing caliber groups. I really enjoyed Brownsburg from Indiana. They were exceptional. Their show really took me. Really enjoyed Glenwood as well. It was I think my first time seeing Glenwood in person, and I've always been like a long time Glenwood fan, and the magic is absolutely still there. I really enjoyed their show, and it was awesome. And I was sitting there saying like, how in the world are these judges going to figure out who goes in the finals? And of course, as a Mississippian, I was really rooting for Grenada and really rooting for Jackson Academy. And then as a Southerner, I was really rooting for Oak Mountain as well. And so we got to see some Southern groups come out and do some amazing things as well. So it's really nice.
Awesome. Well, we would be remiss without talking about the winner of Show Choir Nationals.
Oh, yeah.
And this group went on a perfect 6-for-6 run this season. They beat everybody in Indiana. They beat choirs from California. They beat choirs from all across the country at Show Choir Nationals. And that choir is Center Grove Sound System. I got to see them once this year. You got to see them twice this year. For those who have not seen Center Grove or have not been following their season, how would you describe Center Grove's show?
It's like a burger. It's like the perfect burger of a show. It has everything you want in it. No matter what you want, it has it there. And I'm going to make that make a little bit more sense. It hits you in the chest with the sound. It's a gorgeous show design. It's the Kings and Queens show design. And the choreography is insane too. Shout out to April James. They were just tremendous. It's an unrelenting show as well. The show just kind of never stops being amazing. And it really takes you on a journey for a lot of younger folks like myself who maybe didn't understand there were some historical things, but there were also some more recent things like with Princess Diana and with the latest queen, and that we maybe weren't alive during, but understood. There were a lot of moments where we were like, ooh. And then of course Hamilton, all of us know this. And so it was really nice. In particular, I enjoyed how well they portray the darker attitude of a show choir show. Like some groups do dark shows and it's very dark. But with Center Grove, it has a different type of gravity to it that I guess keeps it up for me, but it doesn't come off. It's not off-putting for me. It's such a great showmanship, in my opinion. And the students they had an incredible season, and they absolutely deserved it. It was a wonderful show.
Wonderful. And so, as Bradley kind of alluded to, Center Grove is doing a crown theme this year. And so Bradley and I actually both had the privilege of seeing them at Wheaton, Warrenville South. And so I think we might have a video of Center Grove that we might be able to pull up here in a little bit. Here we go. It's just incredible. I mean, the biggest thing to me that stands out is that being a Wisconsin boy myself in high school, I was lucky to see Chesterton once every couple of years. And that was the extent of my Indiana show choir. And so when I was able to go to Wheaton Warrenville South this year and see that show, a lot of people in the upper Midwest, they talk about Iowa's choral depth, and Iowa's choral depth is incredible, but Indiana's is right up there with it. And so that was the biggest thing that I think you can even get that from the video. Obviously, the microphone sound is never going to be perfect, but just the sheer depth and intensity of their sound was what stood out to me. You're the choreographer. What on the visual side stood out to you about Center Grove?
Just I get chills just thinking about it. It's just the way you make a move look, and I feel like every single time I see it, I feel like I'm seeing it for the first time. Like I said earlier, the weight of the move, the gravity of the move, like the way they break away from the choreography. And it's hard to make it look like that from hundreds of feet away. Like I was sitting at the Opry, I was sitting up top, and I could have been right there, right in front of them, 2 feet away from them. It was just the connectivity was there. They moved through all of the moves with so much intention, which is another thing that we start to see from some of these groups that have been firing off at all cylinders throughout the season. They believe every single movement they have, every single vowel sound they use, they believe it. And so there's even a spot in the show where they're singing Survivor again, but they're not doing like actual like choreography. They're kind of doing their own thing, and it's just like it gets you hype. I'm just like, yes, 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 I'm a survivor. Like I'm feeling what you're giving me right now. Like, yes, this is amazing. So yeah, movement with Center Grove. They've historically never had an issue with movement. They've always been pretty. They give you like this super intense reaction when they lock in. And so it's been amazing. It's been an amazing experience. I'm glad I got to see him as many times as I did, and I wish I could see him 500 more times.
There we go. And one of the places where you and I both saw Center Grove was the Wheaton Warrenville South Choral Classic this year. And I think that besides for Show Choir Nationals, this was probably one of the events that drew the most headlines this year. Potentially the first event ever in the show choir world to go until 3 a.m. I think Albertville 2014 is the only one that can even hold a candle to that. You dipped out a little bit earlier than that. I think you left a little short of midnight, right?
Yeah, I look, y'all. Okay, I love it. I love show choir as much as the next person. I do. But I was already tired. We got there at what 7:30 in the morning, and so by the 15-hour mark, I'm like, okay, look, I think the show choir world will survive if I just check out just a little bit early. Like nothing crazy is gonna happen, and then of course I wake up at 5 in the morning the next day, and the show choir competition had only been done for like 2 hours. And I'm looking at the results, and I went right back to sleep. But yeah, I had to. Yeah, I'm getting old. Will, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with me. I can't hang like I used to.
That's very fair. I mean, I wound up going to a concert after prelims, and so
Yeah,
I
you're
I
crazy.
came back at 11:45, and I walk in, and the first mixed finalist is about to set up, and it's kind of like that Simpsons meme where it's like I'm in danger,
Yeah.
and sure enough, I posted an Instagram story saying Happy Show Choir Sunday, and that's with the Mitchell Corn Palace set up at 3, and then or at midnight, and then the Zionsville Royal Air set at 3. I said Happy Show Choir Daylight Savings Time. And I don't know if I've ever posted a more sarcastic Instagram story in my life, because that was definitely not a Happy Show Choir Daylight Savings. But it was a heck of an event. I think we had 25 total groups there on Saturday, plus a handful of middle schools on Friday. And just, I think it was both our first experiences for Illinois show choir. So I think just what was one or two things that stood out to you about the Choral Classic?
I think the thing that stood out to me the most, I want to give the Wheaton Warrenville South Choral Classic its flowers, because that is a very tough competition to pull off timing wise. Like we knew it was gonna go behind because there's only so much you can do. But like the fact that they had to do different riser setups, and those crew people got out there and they were working hard pretty much all day. The food was incredible. I want to say it was just such a well run competition. What stuck out to me the most was actually the fact that it took place in the gym. So like where I'm from, Yale down in the South, we all use auditoriums aside from maybe one competition this year. And so I've never sat in gym bleachers for a show choir competition. So I think that's the stuck out the most for me. But despite it being in a gym, it sound was fine. Sound was pretty nice. And I sat way back up in the bleachers and could still hear everybody. There was nothing about it that it kind of didn't feel like a gym outside from where I was sitting. Like the setup was so professional and so well done. And so I didn't even really get the gym feel, but that was definitely the biggest thing that stuck out to me as someone who's never been in a show choir competition that takes place at a gym. But I think that's a familiar thing up there in the Midwest, is it not?
Yeah, welcome to the upper Midwest. I think Indiana is a lot more auditoriums and a little bit of gyms, but then Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, I think it's a fairly even split, but then Iowa, there's a lot of gym competitions as well. So that's super interesting that you were able to get that bit of perspective. And as we talk about the differences in between regions and things like that, we did see several groups from one native region of the country travel out of region per se to a different one. Of course, national events such as nationals or HOA or fame or whatever, that's kind of the expectation. But we did see a number of groups travel to quote unquote local competitions this year that were from out of region. And to your credit, mainly it was the southern groups. We had Brandon going up to Chesterton, and they had a phenomenal show, I believe, about like toys through the decades. And they had a really good 90s dance break, 80s dance break that I think we have a video of real quick here. But then we also had Homewood. We had Homewood going up to a competition in Ohio. We had Pedal going up to another competition in Ohio. And we had Auburn going up to New England. And we had Jackson Prep going out to California. So Bradley, speak for your region. What is the South doing going out of region so much? Why are they doing so well? And what do we learn when this happens?
Yeah, let's check the rest of this clip out and I'll tell you right after.
All right.
Just insane. I mean, those kids dance their butts off. So just to as a Southerner again, I'm the representation for the South, and I'm super proud. I mean, it's nice. We've always kind of had like a mix up between the Midwest and the South. We had some Midwestern groups come down here last year. Glenwood came down here last year. Wheaton, Warrenville South came down here last year. And so it was really cool kind of for us to go on up there. And, and we've always had a few groups go up there. Like Clinton usually goes to Glenwood a lot. They've been to Wheaton, Warrenville South a lot in the past as well. But this year, it was cool to see Brandon go up and bump into another one of the Indy Titans, because last year they faced off against Center Grove. And there was a caption split. Of course, we saw the same caption split when they went up there for Chesterton, second place with best visuals and best show design, and Karma walked away the grand champ with best vocals. And so that's something that we tend to see a lot due to the regional focuses that we have from year to year. Homewood was the exception of those groups. Homewood went to Ross, and they ended up taking the entire competition. They swept it in finals. I believe they had come close or tied in prelims, but they really pulled through, and it was nice to see. You support your groups in your region, and then when they go far away, you want to take it with them. We also saw some success with Jackson Prep, who was having sort of a rocky year at the beginning, but their show got tighter and tighter as the year went along. And eventually they went to California and they placed first in their division. So congratulations to them as well.
Awesome. And you mentioned Homewood as that exception. I think we have a clip of them singing that we can pull up here because they were phenomenal.
Wonderful. Homewood, everyone had their eyes on Homewood and a few other show choirs that had some director changes. Of course, their new director now is Byron Mascara. And, you never really know what to expect, but he's been working there at Homewood for quite some time. And I think a great example of a director transition, bringing the assistant director up and not only has he done some tremendous work with Network, he's done some amazing work with Nexus. And it was nice to see them cap their year off. They're at Ross with the sweep. They had a phenomenal season. And of course, vocals was a very strong thing for them. They faced some heavy competition at the Jackson Academy Show Choir Invitational, which that clip was from. I was there in person, and you probably heard me screaming after she did that insane run. That is Alyssa B. Culverhouse. She is a tremendous soloist, but even behind her, still being able to hear all of those things that are all on the score sheet, but definitely all in the soul when it comes to singing. Being able to hear the blend, being able to hear the dynamics, just the whole choir Not even during their ballad, not even just during their ballad, but just throughout their entire show. They've just had a phenomenal season. So really proud of Homewood there, and of course proud of all of our groups that travel out of the region to compete. I love seeing it. I want to see more of it next year. I want to see some Midwestern groups down here. I want to see some Southern groups up there. California, come over if you love us. New England, we love you too. Let's keep it going. Texas, swing by. Like, yeah. So yeah, it's been a nice mix up.
Yeah, and the thing is that I racked my brain and I'm like, all right, what happened in the Midwest this year that I could compare this to? And I came up with a grand total of one competition, and that was the Cosby Titan Tournament of Choirs a couple weeks ago in the Richmond, Virginia area. We had Troy Buchanan Express and Soundwave coming out from Missouri. We had the Chesterton Sandpipers and Drifters coming out from Indiana, and we have the John Burroughs Powerhouse and Sound Sensations coming out from California. And what happened then combined with Scranton First Edition from Pennsylvania, who is a group that I think we'll touch on a little bit later. They wound up locking the Virginia groups out of finals entirely. So one of the things that I most often look forward to when we see these groups go out of region is, where do they fall? Where do the caption splits line up? We think we have the power players in each scene, but then how does that shift? And what happened with Cosby is that there were simply too many out-of-state choirs that they just wound up blocking everybody in Virginia out of the finals. And so, like you said, I would like to see more of it next year, but perhaps we can cool it and we can take it like 2 choirs at a time instead of just
Yeah.
5, and then you just wipe out the finals field for the home state. So yeah, I think the California deal is super interesting. We had a comment in the YouTube chat saying that California is auditorium competitions all day. And I know that there are plenty of very well-run competitions in California, and there's still a couple left throughout the season. But one thing that you don't get in California are snowstorms. And so it's currently flurrying outside my house right now in Wisconsin. And Bradley, I know that you in Mississippi, snow is probably few and far between for you. But we did unfortunately have to deal with a fair bit of snow in the show choir season this January. Specifically, February and March have been pretty quiet weather months, but January, especially that second weekend, on January 13th, there were originally supposed to be a dozen competitions in this great United States of America country. 10 of them wound up being affected by weather in some form or fashion. I believe Beaver Creek and Blue Valley were the only two that wound up not being affected by weather in some way, shape, or fashion. We wound up having the Onalaska Show Choir Classic in Wisconsin go on at roughly about a 50% field. But then we just had a slew of competitions get canceled, some very anticipated lineups. We had Lynn Marr get canceled, Muscatine, their Rhythm on the Riverbend, their River City Showcase, that's Bettendorf's competition name, the Ralston Ramageddon, Sioux Falls Jefferson Cavalier Classic, and the Waukee Starstruck all canceled. And so if you look, that's specifically Iowa getting hit pretty hard, but then South Dakota and Nebraska as well. I looked on the Southern calendar for that day, and your one event made it out unscathed. That was the Alabama Contempo Choral Festival. So I guess from an outsider's perspective, from number one, not starting the season until super late in January, and number two, not dealing with weather that much, what are your emotions? What do you feel like when you see all these competitions get impacted by weather?
Well, I get 2 feelings. The first feeling is I feel like we dodged a bullet, and so there's always that feeling. But I also get this sensation. I feel for these show choirs because as a choreographer who works, I do freelance, but I also work very closely with a few groups. You work all season, or all year, excuse me. Some groups starting as soon as May, or even before then, on starting the bones of their show, and so for all of that to happen right the week before or a few days before or even sometimes the day of finding out that you can't go compete, it does hit a little bit different for someone who's been a performer before. I know you've had that feeling before if anything has ever been canceled on your front. Thankfully in the South, yeah, like you said, we only had one competition going on, or not even a competition but an evaluation, a non-competitive event taking place, and we always tend to ramp our season up the last week of January. And now I will say, if there had been even just a tiny bit of snow, even just a little bit, and there were some show choir competitions happening in the South, rest assured every single one of them would have been canceled because of travel. Y'all tend to deal with snow a lot better than Southerners do. I love the snow. I hate the cold. I don't like being anywhere near the Midwest during this time of the year. But yeah, to tie it all in, I really do feel for these kids. But if I'm understanding correctly, some of these show choirs were able to turn around and move to different competitions on the same day, right?
That's right. Yeah, because of the weekend that this happened, the second weekend in January, it presented a scenario where Martin Luther King Jr. Day was the following Monday. And so it's kind of a split issue here up in the Midwest as to whether school districts take off for MLK Day or not. One place where I guess most of those schools do take off is Nebraska. So we had two Nebraska competitions get canceled originally, and those were the Gretna Primetime and the Lincoln Lynx Show Choir Invitational that both wound up rescheduling back to Monday. And so, of course, you have some groups swapping in and out because there was also a third competition in Nebraska, the Ralston Ramageddon, that was canceled and not rescheduled. But it did provide a very great opportunity for a couple of these competitions to, number one, make their revenue back, obviously. But number two, like you said, just give these students another opportunity to perform. Give these students on a day where they'd probably be sitting around the house anyways if they're off
Yeah.
of school. Just get them out the door, do something productive with them, get them on the show choir stage. And it kicked off the season for two very stellar groups. It kicked off the season for Lincoln Southwest, who you and I both had the pleasure of seeing. Their Chicken Little show won its first competition of the year at Gretna on that Monday, but then also Lincoln East, who is a Nebraska group that wound up getting 4 wins this year. They were originally scheduled to go to Ralston, but then when Ralston canceled and did not reschedule, they hit up their friends across town at Lincoln High, which is, I think, roughly about 12 minutes away from Lincoln East. And they said, hey, can we come to your competition today? And the folks at Lincoln High said, sure. And so East walked out of there with a full sweep of the mixed division. So that was super cool for not only Lincoln Southwest being able to do that 2 days later at the same competition, but Lincoln East going to a different competition 2 days later. I don't know if we've ever seen that before in the show choir world.
Maybe not. That's definitely like a really really cool thing to happen. Uh, Another cool thing that I want to mention, a cool thing that's never happened before, is this wonderful live stream is also being hosted in a way that you can call in. So don't forget, the link is at the bottom of the screen if you want to check in. Yeah, that was a cool little tie-in. Thank you. I appreciate it. If you want to check in at the bottom of the screen, you can call in for the later show. But yeah, I thought that's a wonderful story that you never really forget, right? Is hey, well, we got this show choir competition canceled, but a few days up, we moved to the next competition and we ended up being the grand champions. And you never know, we may have not been the grand champions if the competition happened normally, and you never know if we would have not carried that momentum to the next win and the next win. And it's so many funny things that you can talk about or say or analyze or speculate. And so I'm very happy that some of those groups were able to find a competitive home somewhere else, despite the weather.
Absolutely, because we did have a couple competitions that canceled. We had Jay County that weekend and then Nitro the next weekend that both tried to reschedule for April, and unfortunately, neither of those are going to be able to make a go of it in April. So is this the start of a trend that we perhaps start seeing a more Monday comps when things get snowed out? I have no idea, but if nothing else, we will always have these couple of moments in 2024. We're going to move into some more uniquely 2024 moments right now. And to just get this segment off the rails right at the front, 2024 saw the rise of duckling shows. And so, Bradley, you were down south for perhaps the highest profile ducky show of the year with Grenada Visions. How was the Visions show this year?
I just gotta say I love those kids. I love Miss Winter. I love Trip. I love Matthew. I love Claire. The whole Vision squad. It's just an amazing show, and we customarily as Southerners are familiar with Grenada in the sense that they've done show design well over the years. They've had some really amazing and very I would say innovative show designs over the years, and so but they're always the group that you're like you're never gonna know, are they gonna come out with like the most game changing show ever, or are they going to be another Southern show choir? And this year they absolutely changed the game with what I believe is their best season to date. Their show was cute. It was funny. It was entertaining. I cried at one point. I mean, it had all the bones. It had everything involved. The story is so seamless, and it never really lets itself slow down. Yeah, let's take a look at this ending dance break real quick.
Did they just say V4L as in like the common visions for life social media hashtag during the show?
That's sure did. I mean, we're talking layers upon layers of choreography happening there. It's an unrelenting dance break. I love dance breaks like that I'm just like, whoa, they're doing more. Oh, they're doing more. Oh, they're doing more. Yeah, it's a big trend in the South for groups to have their own like calling cards, I guess you could say. And V4L is their almost like their motto. And so and customarily done in closers. It's a cool little tag for them, and so it is a V4L. I even commented it under the Show Choir Nationals comment section. I said it. I love Visions, and they did Ugly Duckling, and I think the way that they did it was a little bit different from how we've seen a few other groups do it throughout the season. It's kind of cool. It's its own story. Like first the duckling goes and talks to the peacocks, and they're like these cool guys, and then duckling gets lost with the vultures. Like they put their own like really interesting spin on it. But it was the same story. And I think that was, what really elevated that show. Because, yeah, sure, the choreography is great. The song selection's great. Vocals are great. But the pacing of the show and the actual emotion behind the show was what really took them up a notch this year. And a really cool thing I want to mention, too, I saw Broken Arrow's group do, their Momentum group do an Ugly Duckling theme as well. And they had backpacks with little duckies. And I thought that was a really cool, each person had a backpack, and I thought that was a really cool way to do it as well. But yeah, Grenada really stole my heart this year, and shout out to all the Grenada people if you're watching at home. Love you.
Yeah, I was also lucky enough to be in the vicinity of an Ugly Duckling show this year, and that was courtesy of Holman Midwest Express. I love all the people over there. I love Miss Shu, Miss Freeze, Mr. Duggan, who's unfortunately not going to be back there next year, Mr. Miller. And they did a more contemporary duckling story. It was less so of like duckling goes and interacts with other people in Animal Kingdom, and much more of a story where the duckling just interacts with other duckies in the neighborhood. So you see front and center there's a soloist in a darker costume than everybody else, signifying all the other ducks. And so it is a really nice story of how the duck kind of gets emotionally beat up at the start, but then finds her strength and then goes on to be a productive member of the duck pond. And so that's, I think, a odd nationwide trend is that I think we only have 3 examples of this show. Yeah, one of them is from the South, one of them is from the Midwest, one of them is kind of from the Southern Plains. One other trend that pretty much swept the nation this year, regardless of where you were from or where you were watching Show Choir, I think California is maybe the only region that I don't have a show example of this from, is Barbie. And so you and I were both privileged enough to see the Mount Zion La Femme Barbie show at Wheaton, Warrenville South, and that had one of the most extravagant sets I'd ever seen. Let's see if we can get that up here real quick, because I think that show almost took longer to set up and take down than it did just to perform. But then we also had Barbie shows from pretty much all across the country. We had Barbie shows from Milton in Wisconsin, Chesterton in Indiana, Jay County also in Indiana, Cobble Midland in West Virginia, and Danville in Illinois as well. So based off the movie last year, I think that maybe we could have predicted a little bit of Barbie, but this is almost to like Greatest Showman levels of takeover. How much Barbie did you see on the Show Choir scene this year?
In a Barbie world, life in plastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair and dress me anywhere. Imagination, life is your creation. Come on, Barbie, let's go party.
Yeah, I actually somehow I dodged a lot of Barbie bullets. Like I only got to see two Barbie shows, and I'll admit when I was watching the movie, I went to go see the movie. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can think of 18 different show design. I even think I put it on my Instagram story. I can think of 18 different ways you could do a Barbie show, and so we did anticipate this. I actually only bumped into Barbie shows at Wheaton with Mount Zion, and there were some groups from Nevada and Arizona who competed for the first time this competition season at Heart of America Orlando. And the women's group from one of those show choirs did a Barbie theme as well. So I somehow survived a little bit of the Barbie craze, but I still definitely got my fill.
Yeah, we have a YouTube comment saying that John Burroughs' men's group actually did a Ken theme last year. So I guess we warmed up to it just a little bit out in California last year. So thank you to Dominic Mattis for that comment in the YouTube chat. And just a reminder that if you want to call in and if you have your own Barbie show example or anything like that, hit that Discord link down at the bottom of your screen and we'll see you in the back half of this show. Also, one other shout out to our producer, Hawken. I did not know that he was going to weld the clips together so seamlessly that we literally just had a verse and then a chorus and then a dance break. And it was like 7 different grooves. So I was like, oh, it's like almost too much to handle right now. But one thing that's probably not going to be too much to handle is that we only have 2 shows of this kind, but these are pretty unique show ideas to have 2 of in the same year. And those are Back to the Future shows. So Bradley, you actually saw both of these shows yesterday in Show Choir National Finals, Noblesville and Oak Mountain. Maybe give us the 30-second elevator pitch on how these 2 shows are the same and different.
Yeah, so on a show design front, Noblesville actually started about halfway through the plot, more so compared to Oak Mountain. Really amazing. Of course, both shows used a car, and I thought that was really super cool because you got to have it, right? Noblesville more front and center on the vocals and choreography, maybe less on the show design front of the set, but still gave a really great story. Only one costume, whereas Oak Mountain, several costume changes, elaborate costumes from beginning to end, screens, of course, because it's the South and why not? And like I said, another car we have here, their car actually moved across the stage. It was pretty insane. I always like to call Oak Mountain the Southern California choir because they do California style in my opinion when it comes to their show design. The lights, the set is always super elaborate, and the character that they all portray is super amazing. But yeah, it was nice to see. It was interesting and nice to see both of those shows actually find themselves at the Show Choir Nationals, and both made finals. So that was really cool.
Awesome. And you touched on screens real quick here, and this is our last trend before I think we're going to be bringing a special guest on. Screens are something that I think that not a lot of schools do super duper well, but I think that may be influenced by the fact that while I was in high school, I saw a grand total of 0 shows with screens. Screens are a very foreign thing to the upper Midwest. But one thing happened this year that I think was the objective all-time best ever use of screens in a show choir show that will not ever be topped. And that was West Marion New Era from this year. And we see that we have screens talking about going on the show choir website. And if that's not more meta than going on the show choir website in the middle of a set, I don't know what is. Did you see this show live being from Mississippi, and how well did it play to the audience? Like, did they get the joke at all?
My biggest regret is that I never got to see West Marion. I think the only competition I would have gotten to see that they had maybe gotten the flu or something and had to drop out of it. But they are the undisputed #1 small mix show choir in Mississippi. And so, of course, they've done a fantastic job. And on the show design front alone, you can see why they cut into that third dimension of show choir that I always talk about on my podcast. They're just amazing. And I got the joke immediately. Because if I did see their show, I probably would have been looking stuff up like right then, like, okay, how's this group been doing throughout the season? And like, and typing in, I just type S and my computer is going to take me right to showchoir.com. And so it's such a cool way, I think, to use screens. I'm super familiar with screens. Some are hit or miss, but mostly all of them are pretty nice. In my experience, I've always enjoyed them. And so it's been nice to see that trend continue throughout the South. That's definitely a really big trend with this, with several of our groups.
Awesome. So those were a recap of some of the uniquely 2024 things. And now I think we are going to be able to bring a special guest on. You know, I am from the Midwest. I'm a Wisconsin boy. I had a very brief stint as a Minnesota resident. Bradley, I believe, to the best of my knowledge, you are a lifelong Mississippi resident.
Yes, I am.
So we are kind of lacking in that Western knowledge dimension. So hopefully we are going to be able to get Chris Mendoza on here real quick to talk California stuff. But until we get him on, Bradley, what were just a couple of things that maybe we didn't talk about in that trends storyline that just off the top of your head were like, these were a couple of the standout moments of the 2024 show choir scene?
I think we got to see a lot of outlying years for groups, like either whether it was a group that would have an exceptional year, and I could use the example of Grenada, they had a pretty standout year, or if it was a flip that we had not seen before. I didn't check, but I'm pretty sure this is the first time that that Center Grove has won show choir nationals, right? Or at least in the past recent years, they've hit second a lot at show choir nationals. And so a big trend or a big overlapping theme was we saw a lot of shakeups. I believe when John Burroughs and Los Alamitos bumped heads earlier this season, we saw a shakeup there. And even with just the caption splits alone, like we saw some things change that like for Los Al, they have been the California group for choreography for over a decade. I think they've gone having that caption, and so it was really interesting year to see some things change. Another thing, like Brandon and Jackson Academy bumped heads at the beginning of the season, and another thing is that there was a switch up there. And Homewood and Auburn bumped heads at the beginning of the season, and there was a switch up there. And so we saw a lot of outlying things. Same thing with Oak Mountain and Pedal down in the South. A lot of changes this year, but a lot of really cool things. And we always say it, you never know what's going to happen. But I think we have Chris now. Let's see if we can get him in here. Yeah. Hey.
Chris, how are you? Okay, we're going to take a second. Yeah, Bradley, I would totally agree with you on so many of those things. I think just coming at it from a national perspective and seeing all of these groups that perhaps are moving forward more so than we've seen in past years. I mean, it obviously helps when you have more competitions to go to, or there are more opportunities popping up. I think we've seen competition growth both in your region and mine, but it is really cool to see some of those groups moving forward. Chris, are you set to go now, or do we need another second with you?
Okay. Yeah, we'll bring him back in a second.
We can make this work. So, Bradley, I think one of the other things that I wanted to touch on really quickly is just a couple of the nationwide breakout groups, kind of continuing on my thought process from earlier. And so one of the regions that we simply have not talked about so far this year, this region, I think has somehow managed to avoid all of our trends so far, is Nebraska. And do we have Chris back on?
We got Chris back.
For you Nebraska people, we'll be back.
Hey, yeah, I think we can hear you.
We got you.
Y'all can hear me. Okay, cool.
Yes, awesome. Welcome, Chris. Welcome to the live stream.
Hi, Bradley. Hi, Will. Nice to be on this show. I'm here to talk California show choir, or more specifically, the West region in general, which includes groups from Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. That's what I cover over on Homeroom Show Choir as a writer, and that's what I'm going to cover today. So, first off, I wanted to give a quick shout out to a couple groups in the intermediate divisions that have been really killing it this year. That would be, first of all, Burroughs Soundwaves. Awesome show. Super fun. Very beastly. I recommend you guys go check that one out. I believe it is on YouTube. Another one is Pacifica Encore. This group has been dominating. I believe they won 8 straight. Is that accurate, Will?
Wow.
I believe so. Because they got their streak snapped by Burrows just a couple of weeks
Exactly.
ago, right? But I
Yes.
think up until that point, I think that also included some overall event wins at a couple of smaller early season California competitions. So I will say,
Yes.
being an outsider from California, Pacifica is a group that I've definitely noticed before.
Yeah, and I can say, having now seen their show, they are primed and ready for a move up to the next tier 2 division. And they could do, relatively well in that division. I'd also like to shout out Walnut, Rhapsody, and Blue. They are an intermediate women's group, and they had a very strong season this year. And them alongside Troy First Ladies, I believe they're called, have got a series of impressive wins in the intermediate women's division, including wins over Burroughs Decibels and Troy beating. Sorry, let me correct myself. Walnut, Rhapsody, and Blue ended up beating Burroughs Decibels, and Troy ended up coming in and beating Walnut, Rhapsody, and Blue right after that. So a lot of interesting stuff going on in the intermediate treble division. Um, it's kind of a standard um, in California that if you end up taking down a Burroughs or Los Al prep group, then that means that you're ready for the next level because
That's
those prep groups are so dominant in their lower divisions. So hopefully we'll be seeing them move up next.
cool. I actually have
Awesome.
a
Yeah.
question, real quick for you, Chris.
Yeah.
Being that you more closely watch the California circuit and the West circuit, is there anything in particular that maybe someone like me who is not from that region, is there anything in particular that we would be, I guess, would have missed had we not have spoken to you about the circuit for this year?
Yes, I think so. Um, One of the biggest things about California that's so interesting is their tiered advanced system. I believe they have it in the South as well, where they have kind of a small and large advanced section. Ours is a little bit different. It's not necessarily by how large or small your choir is, but just by skill level or by wherever you want to put yourself on that
Hmm.
day. It's you choose which tier you go in. But the tier 2 groups in California are is one of the most unique pockets of show choir that I am aware of. With just how competitive and how interesting and innovative these shows are, there's just kind of not anything like it anywhere else. Um, just from the perspective of how different the styles are from pretty much anywhere else in the country.
Yeah.
Um, right now in California, we're kind of looking at what I like to call the little three, um, which is of course is a play on the big three of Los Alamitos, Burbank, and Burroughs. But we have a little three going on in tier 2 this year, with the likes of Heart Sound Vibrations, Diamond Bar Marquee, and Glendora Royal Stewarts, who have just been on a rampage the last 2 years. Glendora specifically this year has had an incredible season. These three groups have, I believe, all beat each other at least once, except I believe Heart has not come out on top over Glendora, although they have split captions. So just to give you a quick taste of what that might of what some of those groups look like, I'd like to call attention to the first clip, and that would be of Glendora Royal Stewart's closer, if we can get that up.
Cool. And while we're working that, you mentioned the different, I guess, tiering system. One really interesting thing that I noticed from going over to Texas, and even when I've been in the Midwest, is that it's almost like those two, I'd say Texas, Oklahoma as well, they do sort of like a prep division and a varsity division. And is that correct, Will? Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, that is. Texas, because of its roots in mainly Midwestern show choirs, really all started by one great director Jen Randall, who went to school in Nebraska. And she taught in Nebraska before going down to Texas. It's very much a Midwesty, just advanced and prep kind of split. Whereas I think in California, they still have quote unquote prep choirs, but they more so fall into the intermediate or novice divisions. And Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But one thing that I do want to say about the Little Three, while I don't know if we're going to be able to have a video of Glendora come up, we can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hopefully we can get Glendora up here pretty quick.
It's coming up.
Here we go.
I'm coming right for me. I hear the walls repeating, the falling earth unbeaten. It sounds like drumming, and you are not alone. I hear the rocks and stones approving our song.
One thing that I want to point out about that clip is that a lot of people that aren't from California, they see the videos of Los Alamitos. They see the videos of John Burroughs. Some years we get to see videos of Burbank, although that's perhaps a little bit more spotty. But one of the other things that I want to point out is that we don't see videos from those groups as often as we should, speaking about Glendora, Heart, Diamond Bar, because you look at videos of those groups and you're like, wow, the production value on those shows is still just kind of off the charts. Like the lighting is all there. The fantastic costumes are there. Choreography that is just phenomenal, just so moving into the scene and the stage and all that. So Chris, I just want to ask you real quick, because you're the one who gets to experience these things on a yearly basis. How many groups deep is that kind of production value in California? Do we see that all the way down to the novice division? Or is that still just more of an advanced 1, advanced 2 kind of deal?
Yeah, well, to answer both of your questions, because Bradley kind of had a question earlier on about the tiering system. Essentially, that production value extends from tier 1 down to tier 2. And probably roughly half of the tier 2 groups have that kind of production behind them. But also, prep groups typically won't go into the advanced tier 2 to answer the question earlier from before. It's just not a thing that they do. Because tier 2 and tier 1 are just... There is a gap between the typical intermediate groups and the tier 2 groups. So typically the prep groups will not be in those tier 2 contests.
Cool. And then Did you have any other videos that you wanted to share with us from California?
Yeah, so I actually have 2 more clips of the Little Three, and I will get to talking about well, let me talk about Burroughs real quick. And then we'll get to those last 2 videos. I just got to say a huge shout out to John Burroughs Powerhouse this year. They are, in my opinion, the strongest choir in the world, both vocally and choreographically this year. And they're stacking up for an absolutely huge season. I did want to give the tier 1 groups their flowers real quick, just because, my time is short. But without further ado, here's a clip of Diamond Bar High School Marquee's ballad. For some context, this is a show about amnesia, and we are trying to get this main character, this alto singer, to remember her fiance. So here we go, if we can get that clip up.
Don't you remember? Don't you remember? Don't you remember? Remember that we've done this all before. We were angels once, you and I.
was
That is
phenomenal.
amazing. I just gotta cut in real quick to say something. Two things. First of all, that is so tremendous. This is so personal. But as someone who has a very close relative of mine who deals with short term memory loss and deals with that from day to day, like that ballad was already hitting me right here, the moment they started singing. But another thing that was really cool that we tend to see in California, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we see a lot of a cappella ballads and we see directors conducting the ballads there too. So I just thought that interesting to point out. I don't think I really see that in very many other regions.
California thing. I was going to mention it had I had a little bit more time. Um, but that it is very typical of California to have an a cappella ballad rather than having instrumental or piano backing, and thus they have a conductor typically do it because there's no instruments to keep the beat. Um, it's just tradition. There's no rule that you have to do a ballad or an a cappella or this or that. It's just what we do, and we create very
Yeah,
unique sounds from that.
cool.
Um, to move on, I wanted to show the last clip of the little three. This is heart sound vibrations. Something to know about heart sound vibrations is that these are some of the best dancers in the country. And I mean that so sincerely. As you'll see in this clip coming up, they are just the poise and the creativity of their choreography is just unlike anything you've ever seen. So let's give it a look.
Nice. Yeah, I can really appreciate like the isolation, especially in the lower body, was really cool. And I love how they actually have their stop and start points visually. I think that's also something so important. And yeah, that was actually my first interpretation of them from this year. So I'll definitely go check the rest of that video out. It's really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool choreography moments in there, and it's stuff that's not necessarily harder or better than anything in other regions. It's just so different and so valid, and just it's just isn't seen very much. So yeah.
Good. Yeah, Chris, our time with you is running a little bit short. So I just wanted to end off this segment by saying that California is probably the main show choir circuit in the country left. We've got a huge battle looming at Oceanside on April 20th. We've got Los Alamitos. We've got John Burroughs. We've got Burbank. We've also got John F. Kennedy in that advanced mixed one division. We've got a ton of choirs all the way down the slate as well. That seems to be the big season end battle for California. What's going to happen there? What's your crystal ball?
Okay. I've held fast about this since the beginning of the year. Since I've seen Burroughs and LaSalle and Burbank and Kennedy, um, Burroughs will get first place in vocals. Los Alamitos will get second place in show. Burbank will get third place, and Kennedy will get fourth place. I could be wrong, but I feel very sure. I feel very certain. Um, Someone to look out for at Oceanside. I believe Carlsbad will be competing in that intermediate division, and they would be my favorites to win, including over some of those prep groups.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it, and have fun following the rest of the California season.
Yeah, of course. See you guys.
All right, so that was Chris Mendoza, our California specialist. And so we want to jump kind of back into the show choir Heartland real quick here for just a few of this year's breakout groups. And Bradley, you got to shower some loving on a lot of groups that you've seen recently, but I want to take a moment and really hit on a group that I had the absolute privilege of seeing at the Totino Grace Show Choir Spectacular, and that is Gretna Revolution from Nebraska, third-year director in Caitlin Wallace, second-year choreographer in Stephen Todd, who's a name that a lot of people recognize, and the back half of their set specifically, just absolutely moved me so badly from an emotional standpoint. I sat next to a Gretna parent in finals, and they basically forced Kleenex into my hand at the end of the show, which was the most wholesome moment. They're like, yeah, we knew it was coming for you. And that was great. So hopefully we have a video of Gretna that we can get up here.
35 hours have gone by since your last breath. Memories of dancing with you are all I have left. Just a few seconds before it's my time to go. Hello, my God and my love. At last I am home. Don't take your life for granted.
And so you see the storyline for those who do not get to watch the show throughout the season. There's a singer-songwriter played by the young man Cameron on the piano. First of all, who brings a piano up to the top riser? But second of all, it's this wonderful storyline where it chronicles the experiences through his life with his wife through quote-unquote original selections. And so that was the wrap-up of that there. And then instantly they pull from the absolute most tender moment of the show straight into a trademark Stephen Todd closer dance break. So Bradley, I think that was your first time seeing the show. What were your impressions?
Well, first I was thinking in my head, this person has a gorgeous voice. Oh my goodness. And then I was thinking, how in the world did they get that piano up there? And then I was thinking, oh, it rotates. I'm thinking, maybe they just put it up there. It's been up there the whole show. I didn't know. I have never seen the show before. And then it starts turning and the wires are going in my head. I'm like, oh wait, that's awesome. And then of course, like you said, that Stephen Todd sting is what I call it. That just the pictures that he's able to create with these groups. It kind of just never gets old for me watching it. It's the most pleasing thing visually, I think, as a choreographer. It's very pleasing to the eye to see. So yeah, that was spectacular. Wow, I need to find that video on YouTube and watch the whole thing for sure.
And then one other group from Nebraska that really broke out was Pius X. And this is also a school from Lincoln, Nebraska. We talked about Lincoln Southwest and Lincoln East before. Pius is a group that underwent a leadership change after the pandemic. Edgar Estrada, a recent Nebraska grad, is the director. Braxton Carr, who you had the absolute privilege of working with last weekend at HOA Orlando, is the choreographer. Pius had a grand total of 2.5 wins in their existence before 2024. They come out with 3 this season, including their first ever sweep. So in a Nebraska scene that's very crowded and hard to make noise, and Spectrum really excelled at that this year. They had a New York theme, and hopefully we have a video of Spectrum that we can look at real quick. So that was another Nebraska show that really stood out to me this year. Bradley, what are a couple from the South that really stand out to you?
Some show choirs. Definitely Wes Jones was the really heavy hitting one that came out of nowhere. We've always known Wes Jones to be a very good singing group, but we have never seen them come out of the gate with the full sweep and then follow that up at their second competition with the full sweep and then still remain competitive as the season goes along. Wes Jones really, really took my heart away. Of course, we have what we consider our our big four, our Titans. We have Clinton, we have Brandon, we have Petal, we have Homewood, and they gave what was to be expected from them. But definitely Grenada and definitely West Jones. And I do want to take a quick moment to talk about Northwest Rankin, their women's group, the Allure. They maybe jumped like 10, maybe even more spots in the Southern rankings this season with how well they've been doing. Wins over some really strong groups, including Brandon Bella's, including Pedal Innovations, including Enterprise. They've had a pretty stellar year as well. And so those are the three that come to mind. And I believe we have a clip of West Jones that I want y'all to hear this tremendous sound from there. Let's take a look. Just super cool. They give me the same feeling that Center Grove gives me, where they hit you with that wall of sound, and it's almost like when I was videoing them and when I videoed Center Grove in the past, like I'm saying, my phone microphone is not worthy for this quality of sound that is going into it. So, Will, my question to you now is, have you seen West Jones' show? And if not, what is your I guess first interpretation of their nice little graveyard dead theme?
So that is the Don't Tell Me Y'all Dead Yet group, right?
No, that is not. But basically it is. Okay, so funny enough, Biloxi is the Don't Tell Me Y'all Dead group, because one of their students says it in their closer, which is hilarious that you say that. I think I made a meme about it, where Biloxi says, "Don't tell me y'all dead," and then West Jones' theme is "They're all dead." So maybe that is where you got that from. Basically, yes, that is the Don't Tell Me Y'all Dead group, because they're all dead. But yeah, that's their theme. It's like a haunted theme, and it's very fun. But yeah, I'm curious to know like your thoughts.
I've seen a lot of dark and deathly shows after the pandemic, so it's very hard to stick out in my mind in that category of show. But that is a show that definitely sticks out in my mind because, like you said, they hit you with it, and then you're like, okay, that was a cool vocal moment. And then they do it again, and then they do it again, and then they do it again, and then they turn around and you're like, okay, they're going to go into a verse. And then they just hit you with it again. And I'm like, okay, all right. This is good. This is good. I'll sit back and watch the rest of this some other time. We are getting closer to our call-in portion. Just another quick shout that if you do want to call into the show, head to that Discord link on the bottom of your screen, and we'll see you in the queue very, very shortly. We have just a couple more breakout groups to do, and then one more segment, and then hopefully we'll get there. Got to give some love to my home state Wisconsin groups. Toma Limited Edition is a group that took their first ever competition win last year in a kind of a smaller competition, split caption win over another program that not a lot of people from out of state know about. They came out this year. They were barely just on the outside of finals, their first competition of the year, and then they reeled off 3 straight wins after that. So it was just a complete coming out party for Toma. Super large choir compared to what they've been in years past, and they did a very fun Popeye the Sailor themed show this year, complete with a showdown with the villain of the show, Brutus. So hopefully we can get a clip of that final showdown towards the end of their show up real quick here. And if we can't, that's okay, because we can just move on to the next group that I had, and that was from Illinois. This is the group that also you and I saw at Wheaton, Warrenville South, and that is the El Paso Gridley Modulations. Mods really kind of had a true breakout year in 2022, but then they kind of went a little bit back towards the average in 2023, and they really came out swinging in 2024. I think we do have a video of Mods that we can queue up here quickly. I think I have one of the dance. Let's go! And so that's a Heath Guimar dance break. And Heath Guimar barely does any groups anymore, but that is just great stuff. What I can say from watching them in the gym at Wheaton is that their energy was just off the charts. I mean, maybe they didn't have that last 3% vocal finish or 3% visual finish that some other groups had, but their energy matched just about everybody else. Bradley, what did you think of seeing their show at Wheaton?
Yeah, it was my first time ever seeing the group, and they made such a great first impression for me. I do the super nerdy thing when I go to competition sometimes, and I pull out my trusty iPad and start scoring to see if I can. Because when you have so many groups, it's kind of hard to say, like, oh, there's 20 groups showing up. Sure, yeah, pick out 6. No, I can't do that. Okay, or pick out 4 or 3. Like, no, absolutely not. I can't do that. So I have to kind of keep myself consistent, and so I score because I'm a nerd and I love show choir too much. And they were one of the groups that really had separated themselves, in my opinion, from a lot of other groups at that competition. Choreography was amazing, vocals were amazing, and like you said, it's one thing to say, oh, there's different levels of polish to different groups. Some groups it looks prettier, blah blah blah, but like the energy with them. Absolutely, they can go energy for energy with just about anybody else who had showed up that day. It was pretty spectacular to witness.
And I just want to put one other statistic in front of you. El Paso Gridley High School out in north central Illinois has 375 students. So between their choir modulations, their mixed choir, and their girls group High Fidelity, they got a quarter to a third of the student body of that school in the show choir program. Is there an equivalent to that you can think of? Because by golly, they're the best ones who do that in the Midwest.
Percentage wise, I don't think so. Like all of our biggest groups are from pretty large schools. Like, and even some of our groups that are, around 48, 49, 50 people, like from Madison Central, we have I think it's anywhere from 1,500 to 1,800 students, depending on the year. So it's pretty impressive for them to be such a large percentage. I would have to go and look and see if I can find anyone that is doing that in the South. I'll definitely take a look at that. You're gonna now. Thanks. My entire Sunday will be spent after this trying to find an equivalent. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, just a couple of other shouts to kind of Midwestern groups that do a lot with the Little Benton community out of Iowa. They have 2 groups, Celebration Co. and Jubilation Inc. And they didn't have the greatest of seasons this year, but they are still in that high percentage category as well out there in Van Horn. They host a great competition as well. And so when we talk about groups that punch above their weight, those are a couple that really come to mind for me. And talking about some other groups that punch above their weight, the show choir community was blessed with several first-time winners this year. So I think we're going to run through some of these pretty quick and then just kind of have discussions over the show. So the first one, and the one with the most wins after never having won before, is the Blue Valley BV Singers from Blue Valley, Kansas. And so Bradley, have you ever heard of a show choir from Kansas before?
No, I have not. And I like to say that I get on the show choir website more than the average man. But no, I did not know that this was a thing. I didn't, some states you never know. Like, is there a show choir in Montana? I don't know. Is there a show choir in Kansas? I guess I know now. And they look to be pretty spectacular. This is really cool. I love the levels that I'm seeing already. And yeah, okay, sorry. My brain is scattered. That is amazing. I think that to have a show choir from a state that people mostly don't see, and to have them do show choir so well is very impressive. So I don't know how long that show choir has existed, but you could tell me they've existed for the past 20, 30, 40 years and I would believe you. That's super cool.
So that is a 30-year competitive show choir.
There you go.
So real ones remember Atchison Adrenaline, which is where Blue Valley's director, Sam Dollins, was before he came to Blue Valley. He basically started Atchison after he graduated from college. That was Kansas' first program. He's now moved to Blue Valley. Atchison and St. Thomas Aquinas are now doing it as well. But Blue Valley, they nabbed a couple wins in Missouri, but then their real big party was at the Fame Orlando, where they picked up a win over the Avon Accents, who is a really big Indiana group. So shout out to Blue Valley for carrying the torch from Kansas. Moving a little bit towards the east, we've got Indianola Side 1 from Iowa. This group, after not having won before, we have 2 wins for the group this year. Indianola in a very crowded Des Moines scene. Bradley, have you ever heard of the name Indianola before?
I think I have passingly heard it. I may have even said it in my sleep as I name off show choirs. I have not. I don't think I've ever seen them. And what's really cool to me is this. I guess this really shows you how strong that region of show choir is, because that's a winning show choir. Like I'm surprised this is their first year to have broken out like that in such a fashion. And I think you throw a rock anywhere in the Midwest, you're going to hit a group like that. And so it's really cool to see, them get the recognition and the awards that they have, I would say, even from a 15-second clip, that they have definitely earned.
Well, we're going to head back to a group that I hope you know about, because if you don't know about them, this would be pretty tough. And that is Biloxi Sound Surge. So we'll get a video of Biloxi up here real quick. Biloxi is a group that, if you've been around the show choir world for a long time, you've watched them grow from small mix to middle mix to large mix to now super large mix. You're the one who's seen this show in person this year. What'd you think of it?
Amazing. And it's the Southern style that I'm familiar with and love so much. You're going to get some great dancing. You're going to get some awesome show design. And you're going to get some decent singing as well. But what you're really going to get is that they do showmanship down in the South. And Biloxi is a great example of this. They have the sauce. They got the sauce. They got the vibe. They got the attitude. They got the flair that we love to see. And it's been such a great journey. I was a show choir student when Biloxi was in small mixed, and then now I'm a choreographer, and they are in our highest division size-wise. And I think that is a great testament to the work that their directors have done over time, namely Kelsey Cook and Suzanne Coakley especially, has grown that program tremendously. They're now bursting at the seams. There's so many of them. They did a really cool Mardi Gras theme, and it was really nice to see them finally get their moment. 15 years in the making for them to win their very first competition, and it was also a full sweep for them. So congratulations to Biloxi.
We're now going to head to a group that I think you are closer to geographically than I am, and that is LD Bell, the Bell System, tucked away in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. I believe they did a Wright Brothers theme this year, so let's see if we can get a video of them up here. Bradley, I think you went to Texas once this year. Did you have a chance to see Bell or not?
I, fascinatingly enough, did not get to go see them because Friday I took my babies to compete there, and then Saturday I'm crazy, so I flew back to Mississippi for the Pedal Show Choir Invitational. But I've been keeping my eye on them, and they have really broken out this year. This is actually my first time seeing a video of their show, and I can kind of understand why they have it seems as though they have decided, hey, look, we're here, the Texas region is growing, and we want to be one of those #1 show choirs in this area, and we're starting to see it now with them. I'm really excited to see what they can do next year. And I've made it my promise. I promised to visit Texas last year, and I did this year, and I promised to visit Texas again next year. The show choir scene there has been cool, and we've really only seen, we've had some great groups from Texas, and of course that region also, it's funny, that region also really includes Oklahoma. And so we've seen some great show choirs stand out there, but LD really came through, and they turned a lot of heads this year.
And they are one of the originals of the Texas show choir scene. Back when Keller Central was the only competition there, circa 2013, they were there. So it's super cool to see LD Bell get their flowers. They're going to move up to something that's a little bit closer to me, and that's Omaha South, the Ambassadors. So let's roll that one quickly here. Omaha South, from that Nebraska area that we've talked about a couple times so far in this show. And one of the things that I want to point out with Omaha South is that this is as close to an inner city show choir as you can get. A lot of times we think of show choir as more of a suburban activity, but Omaha South is pretty smack dab in the middle of that city. It is right on Interstate 80 as you roll into Omaha. And when you're dealing with a little bit less resources than some other programs, that's just a testament to Tyler Grudemeyer, their director, and everything like that. And the Ambassadors, they wound up taking home their first win at the Omaha North Viking Cup, so traveling just across town. So they do get out to compete in Missouri and in Illinois occasionally. So Bradley, have you heard of Omaha South at all? And if so, what have you heard about them?
I have not. I'm telling you now, the Midwest is an expansive dynasty of different kingdoms in various locations that my little old heart, we have 11 competitions in Alabama and seven competitions in Alabama and 11 in Mississippi. Okay, I can tell you every single show choir in Mississippi and probably most of them in Alabama. But once you start getting up to the Midwest, like I said, you throw a rock and you're gonna hit a talented group of kids. And I mean, just from first glance, the spirit is absolutely there. The choreography seems to be super sharp. I didn't get to hear them sing. It seems like it was a really cool dance break, but I think it's a testament to a group's ability to take what they have and still create something magical. And we see a lot of groups do that throughout the country. But it's so special to me when it's so real in that sense that they really take whatever they have and they say, hey, look, we're still here. We are in the midst of this very depth region. It's very dense. There's a lot going on, but we're going to make ourselves known. And so it's nice to see that they broke out in such a fashion this year.
Well, we're going to go to a region that is not dense at all, and that is Pennsylvania. And Scranton First Edition is, at least to my knowledge, the only competitive show choir in Pennsylvania right now. So let's get First Edition up here real quick. They took home their first ever win at the Alliance Royal Aviation Show Choir competition in Ohio this past February.
No fear for the fight, full hope from defeat in the night. There's an image of you in my mind, to be mad, but you might just be right. We are the people we've been waiting for, out of the ruins of Wheaton war, army of robbers never seen before. We are the people we've been waiting for.
And Scranton, because they're in Pennsylvania, they're in a very unique geographical situation. There are no competitions within hours of them. So they spend most of their time competing in the New England scene. You see them in Massachusetts a fair bit. Occasionally you see them pop down to Virginia, and very occasionally you see them go over to Ohio, and that's where they got their first win. Have you heard anything about Scranton? And if so, what have you heard about them?
I'm going to tell you something that's not going to surprise you. No, I haven't. But like I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. It's awesome to see them face a very unique disadvantage, I would say, is that they have to travel so far. I know funds for show choir and budgeting and schools and administrative costs and all of that stuff is not fun to deal with. So for them to have the spirit, the energy, the drive to go to those places out of state, and then for them to finally be like rewarded for it's heartwarming to me. So that's really cool. But you're putting a lot of groups on my radar now. I gotta do my Midwest deep dive today.
Well, I'm going to put one more Midwestern group on your radar, and that is Sparta Upstage Adrenaline. Gotta dish on my home state one more time from Wisconsin. So if we get Sparta up quick, this is a Greed Reimagined show. Perhaps we are not going to get a video for Sparta, but that's okay. So we have got still a great show from Sparta. This is a group that is only in their second year of varsity competition. They were a really big force back in the late 1970s and early 80s. Their program ran dormant, and then their director, Cami Schneider, stepped in 2017 and started their program back. And so after COVID, they gradually transitioned up to the varsity division. Now in year number 2 in the varsity division, we have them winning a competition they won just on March 9th at the Janesville Craig Spotlight Spectacular. So that's really cool for them. Just one more reminder, folks, that if you want to call in, we are getting very, very close to that point in the show. So hit that Discord link down below and get in the queue. Bradley, what do you say? It's time to welcome on our second special guest of the show.
Yeah, let's welcome in from, I believe, from New Hampshire, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is a really cool thing. So we spoke about first times throughout this last segment, and we have a first-time show choir in the state of New Hampshire. How about you introduce yourselves to us? I think they are having a few technical issues, but we'll get her back in here and we will conduct that interview. One quick thing that I wanted to touch on, Will, something that I did mention, and I don't think you mentioned it either. Being in a program and winning for the first time is a feeling that is, first of all, winning. For a lot of students, they experience that. Of course, they cry, they're happy. But being in a program where you've been working towards that goal for such a long time, we've seen some of those groups. We've seen some of that happen for a lot of those groups across the nation. That is a really good feeling. And I just want to take a quick moment to speak about my middle school babies. When we started the program in 2018, that was the goal. We were like, okay, look, we're going to get in there, and after a while, let's go for it. And last year in the 2023 season, they won for the first time. And it feels like with that program as a whole, with these programs throughout the country, it feels like all of that hard work from years past is cooked into that moment, especially for directors. Students, if they've been there since the beginning, they definitely feel it. And of course, alumni, they definitely feel it. But it's such an incredible feeling to start a program and to watch it grow over the years and finally say, look, this is the year we're going to take it to the finish line. And have that happen is a very special moment for those kids. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Absolutely. My freshman year of high school, I made it into my school's varsity group, and we won a competition for the first time in 10 years when that happened. And it was just this raw emotional moment where my director, it was her third year, so it was her first time winning a competition at all, because this was her first show choir directing job after being a show choir kid in high school. And it was this culmination of work that of seniors who'd been there since the start, and they had gone through a director change because they started with the old director, and they had changed their ways and all that. And then all of us underclassmen who were just trying our best to get to that goal. And so it was just a moment of really sheer euphoria. And we never got back there. So it was a one-time feeling, but that next crop of kids, they got to experience that feeling after the pandemic, when things have kind of turned over again. And so it is a fantastic feeling. And so hopefully we can get Lucy back on the show here in a second. I think we'd be ready to take her whenever she's ready. But until we get that on, Bradley, you talked about expanding your Midwest repository. And so we can talk about the Midwest until we're blue in the face. But I just want to talk about some groups from states that you don't really think about as show choir states, and some events as well. And so we saw a couple of really nice first-time events this year. One of those events was just this past weekend, actually, not yesterday, but the weekend before that. And that was the Vista Ridge Best of the Rockies Show Choir Fest taking place in northern Colorado. Colorado is a state where they have a couple of state-sanctioned show choir events in mid to late April. But other than that, you don't really see any of these choirs brushing shoulders with anybody else. But then Vista Ridge decided to step up and host their own festival this year. And so that happened on March 16th. Cheyenne Mountain Dynamics was the winner of that one. And then we actually saw another group who competed at that competition, Falcon. They wound up going to Nebraska to compete at a competition as well. So I think I'm going to ask a question that I know the answer to. But do you know anything about Colorado Show Choir? And after learning this, do you have any opinions on it?
Yes, I actually know a lot of. No, I'm just kidding. I have no clue. Yeah, you're about to be like, wait, what? How do you know? Yeah, no. You have surprised me for, I think, the seventh time today, Will, with your expansive knowledge on the new emerging show choirs across the region. I think it's, and I'm glad I have the opportunity to say this, I think it's a blessing to see all of these groups and their local areas start to blossom and start to create sort of like a web of show choirs, and then to get some crossplay from different regions, like to have Midwesterners who come down to the South, or vice versa, or a Southern group goes to California, or groups from Arizona and Nevada come to Florida. It's just so cool to see that, because you get a different mix of styles, you get a different mix of interpretations, and it really makes, in my opinion, it really makes show choir special. I like that there's no one way to do show choir. And I like that each region, each state almost, has their own kind of identity and their own way of expressing themselves on stage that can still be facilitated through a score sheet, which is insane if you think about it. I can't think of any other sport or art style that can emulate that. Maybe I'm just not thinking hard enough, but to see it done in so many different ways, and to see it come together for sure a few local competitions and then also some national competitions, is just, it's a thing of beauty, and it makes you sit back and say, wow, this is really why we like to see show choir. We love to see, you know, one choir come in and give us this style, and then we'd love to see this other show choir come in and they sing their butts off, and then this show choir does pop vocals very well, and this show choir does a very nice choral, very mature sound very well, and they all sound like opera singers, and this show choir comes out of nowhere and they build a Barbie dream house 18,000 feet into the air, you know, or this show choir comes out and they don't have any set and they win a competition. You know, it's just such a cool thing about us. We're all different and each region is different, but when we come together, we share these competitions and these experiences with each other. And yeah, like I said at the beginning, it's honestly a blessing to witness that. So I'm glad to see it developing over there in Colorado. And I think we have Lucy back now. We're going to bring her up here and talk to her a little bit. Hey, Lucy, welcome to the live stream. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. And if we're not mistaken, this is the first show choir in New Hampshire, I think, ever. And so tell us how your year went. How did it feel to compete for the first time?
Yeah, so we had auditions in September, and this is the first year that Nessa has been offering programming, and right now it's just after school programming, but in the fall we will open, and yeah, it was the first time that any of us had ever really heard of or experienced show choir, and so it was mostly about, you know, we were sort of the guinea pigs and we working out the kinks and just sort of building this story and performance that we then got to share last weekend, and it was definitely a really unique experience for all of us, as none of us had ever really done show choir before, because it's not much of a thing up here.
Yeah, I just want to zero in on the start of that process real quick. For Bradley and I, we went to high schools that had established show choir programs before we got there. So when someone told us, oh, you know, you should audition for this, we had a tangible product that we could watch on stage and see. So I guess number one, where did this idea even come from to do show choir in New Hampshire? And number two, how did you get sold on auditioning when there was no proof of concept at your school at all?
Yeah, so basically the idea of adding show choir into the curriculum at Nessa was just expanding and offering a variety of experience for students. So Jennifer Chambers, who is the head of the school, she just really wanted to bring something into Nessa that nowhere in the area has, and that's what really makes Nessa a unique school. And so for me, when I wanted to audition, I didn't even know what show choir was. I just thought, you know, I was willing to add another just performing arts activity into my day. And so it was definitely a journey and learning more about what show choir is, but also at the same time, how you were saying, there's no one way to do show choir. And so we really wanted to make it our own and make it unique. And since we had such a small amount of people, we were kind of really able to highlight each individual person as a part of this story that we were telling.
That's awesome to hear. Okay, so I would say, and I think I said this when I was talking to Will earlier. I've had a very nice education, folks, but for a lot of these states, it's funny to see show choir starting in it. And I was joking with Will earlier. I didn't even know if I could find New Hampshire on it. I can, by the way. I checked and I was correct. Okay, so before anybody says anything, but my next question for you would be, as a first-time show choir student, first of all, welcome to the world of show choir. It's insane. It's crazy. It's expansive. I hope you enjoy it. You're going to make a lot of cool memories. What are your expectations for your group next year? What are some things that you are hoping to see from y'all?
Next year, definitely more members. I think that with the newsletter and with all of the outreach and advertising that's been done, and just getting the word out in general, I think that next year, and since it'll be a full-time running high school like day to day. So I think more members, and definitely this year was just a year to work out the kinks. We had to have a last minute Zoom the night before we had to leave at 4 a.m. for the competition, because we had realized that some of the mics were taped down and we had to change some of the choreography to grab the handheld mics for soloists. And so yeah, just making sure that we it's just all about growing and learning as we go. That's kind of what this year was about. And so next year, just taking what we learned from this year and just trying to improve and seeing like how can we stand out and how can we make our group really shine. And you know, all the other groups who have been doing this for so many years and have really established programs, like how can we get to that level ourselves?
Yeah, that's super cool. And you mentioned that is something that the New England School of the Arts does, is that it brings in unique opportunities. And that was one of the reasons why you kind of jumped at this. So I guess that kind of brings me to a two-sided question. Say that another group from New Hampshire were to start doing show choir next year. Would you be happy or sad that that's happening? Would you be happy that there'd be somebody else that's doing what you're doing, or would you be sad because you're no longer unique?
Well, I think it definitely depends, because we are like the only really arts school in New Hampshire that's focused on having arts as a part of the core curriculum, and really having that be a really major theme in the education, and how arts just expand and enrich education as a whole. And so I think that we would still be unique if, you know, another school were to choose to add show choir as an extracurricular activity or after school thing. I think that we would still be unique in the sense that we're an arts specialized school. But so I think it would just be happy. And what I learned when we went to the New England Show Choir Showdown is it's such a welcoming and encouraging environment. Everyone was cheering for each other. All the other groups were saying, you know, good job, and doing the hand wave thing and there's this whole culture, and it's all just very positive. So I don't think that there would be any hard feelings if there were to be another group in New Hampshire, because I think that expanding show choir to, you know, more places in the US and having more groups in like states that don't have that many there's nothing bad about that. That's a totally positive thing.
Well, you just answered my next question, because I was going to ask you what you learned when you went to Andover. So Bradley, I guess what other questions do you have for Lucy?
That was also going to be my question, but I think I can change it just a little bit. What was there any group that you can remember that you liked a ton when you went to that competition that you got to see in person, maybe?
Yeah, so oh my gosh, there were a lot of groups. I do not remember the name off the top of my head, but there was one that went shortly after our group that was especially memorable. I think it was just the costumes and the setting that they had was really unique. It was this dentist story, and I thought that was pretty cool. And just in general, how each group had a different story and just made it their own, really, and had every group had something special about them, which was cool to see.
I think the dentist show was from Tatasqua this year. I do think I remember seeing a brief mention of that. So that's if I had a nickel for every time someone told me about the dentist show this year, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. So Bradley, I guess any other questions from you? Because I'm all the way on.
Oh man, that just hit me. No further questions, but thank you for coming on to the live stream. Welcome to the world of show choir. We will be keeping an eye on y'all for next year. We're super excited. We hope the program grows tremendously. I would love to look back on this a few years from now and be like, wow, we did this silly little live stream, this amazing thing, and we brought one of the students from this show, from the first ever show choir in this state, and now look at this state. It's blossoming, and there's show choirs everywhere, and y'all can go to your own local competitions and make friends and do all this fun stuff and keep growing the arts there over in New Hampshire. Hampshire. So yeah, Will, is there anything else you want to say?
No, Lucy, I just want to say thank you again for coming on. Thank you for fighting through some of these technical difficulties that we experienced. And best of luck for you as you move forward in your show choir journey.
Thank you. Yeah, we were so excited to keep growing.
All right. Thank you so much. Bradley, I think it is time for us to get to the long awaited call in section. So, just as a reminder, if you want to call in, now is the time to do it. We've been saying this for 99 minutes. If you want to call in, you'll have your chance. After 99 minutes, this is your chance to call in. Discord.gg/ a random string of
Hey, I was about to say, are
letters
you
and
going to say
numbers
letters?
that I'm not going to say. So I think we have one on the line right now. If we can bring in, I have no idea who this is.
Oh
Now I
my
have an idea
goodness,
who this is.
I'm done. No, I'm not doing it. No, I'm just kidding. Dobbs Durkin, previous alum from Homewood High School, the network. Of course, he's here. Of course, me and Dobbs spent the weekend together at the Show Choir Nationals. We had a great time. Dobbs, how you feeling, buddy? How are you?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm excited. I I had a great time in Nashville with you, Bradley. Lots of fun watching all those groups. We had we had a lot to talk about. We had a lot to talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm doing great.
Okay, Dobbs, did you have a question for us? Did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
Um, I just like out of the past 10 years, which has been your favorite year of show choir? Just
Oh,
around the nation.
I gotta say, 2024. Yeah, and I know we're having our 2024 wrapped this year, and I feel like it's because of all those past years that has really built into this. You know, we all got scared as a community. We lost a lot of show choirs during COVID, and it was very sad because show choir. I mean, people don't realize this. Show choir is a very fragile thing. I mean, a switch of a director. A switch of a budget, anything can completely, we can lose a show choir. And so seeing us bounce back from that, and I feel like, of course, this wasn't the first year. I feel like 2022 was really the first year where we were like, we are so back in such a big way. But to see us continue to build on that momentum, and like I said, there's show choirs popping up everywhere now. We've had a couple of show choirs, even they don't compete this year, but they came to competitions just to watch and kind of get a feel for it. And so it's nice to see the community growing. I gotta say, yeah, 2024 has got to be my favorite all-time year. It's also the most show choir competitions that I've attended in one season. So I've gotten to see a lot more, even though Will has quite clearly shown me that I still haven't gotten enough show choir, because despite me going to the most competitive Midwestern show choir competition, or maybe even national competition of the year, I still didn't see 18,000 show choirs. So Will, what's your favorite year?
I think just for nostalgia's sake, I'm going to jump right in at the start of this last 10 years. So I'm going to go 2015. I mean, 2015 was still the heyday for a lot of classic programs. This was back when Walkie Millennium was about as big of a titan as there was. This was back just right after the Ankeny split in Iowa, when you had both Ankeny VA and Ankeny Centennial Spectrum going. It was another classic Marysville Swingers Unlimited show. It was another classic Omaha Westside ATSC show. I mean, your California Big Three is rolling. But in terms of recent years, and in terms of like last five, I'd have to go with Bradley. I'd say 2024 is the year that we are, to quote the popular meme, so back. Because there is just this energy around show choir that a lot of groups, even if they didn't go away, they took a big membership hit during the pandemic. And so in 2021 and 2022, I'm not going to lie, I'm looking at some of these shows and I'm like, is this really the best that our students can do? And by 2024, I'm like, yes, this is the best that our students can do. And I do believe that we are firmly back. While I apparently know about more show choirs than Bradley, I do not know of any that have just come to watch so far this year. So Bradley at least has me one upped in that department.
Thank you. Okay, there's one thing I got. Okay, cool. And yeah, we to piggyback off that, we got to see some tremendous stuff at nationals, and it's worth it to come see these competitions. Dobbs, in fact, did not get very much sleep. I think what you got, maybe a collective of 4 hours
So
of sleep over the weekend.
so
Tell us about that.
I I have I was in Mobile, Alabama, which Mobile to Birmingham is 3.5 hours. I met with my
Yep.
friend here. We went to bed at 1 in the morning, I think, just like off of pure excitement, off of pure adrenaline. We were so excited to go. We couldn't sleep, so we both fell asleep at 1, woke up at 3 a.m. and drove 3.5 hours, watched all of prelims, hung out all night. I got to go watch Center Grove rehearse that night, which was one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. But even falling asleep that night, it was so easy, but like we kept waking up every 30 minutes and weren't getting too much sleep. Then we woke up again for finals and I was just like, oh my gosh. One more
Was it
day.
worth it though?
We got it.
Was it worth it?
Oh, 100%. 100%. All of those great groups, like just great energy, great place, like great venue. It was amazing. And like as someone who competed there last year, being able to like not have a dog in the fight and just to sit back and just get to watch it all, it was amazing.
So Dobbs, now I have a question for you. Do you like Show Choir Nationals or Heart of America more?
I've never actually been to an HOA competition. I've been to 2 SCNs, but I mean, I'd be so down to go to an HOA and see what it's like. I'd have to find the time first, but I mean, I have to say Show Choir Nationals because I haven't been to an HOA yet. So,
all right. Well,
what
HOA
about you,
is having
Bradley?
a new.
Because Bradley
Been
was
to
at
both.
both.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I think we have seen some insane show choir national lineups, and we have seen some insane HOA lineups, like namely 2018, where everyone was there. It kind of was very reminiscent. It was actually probably more competitive than Wheaton this year, which was probably the most competitively dense competition that we got. I think maybe all the big 3, or at least 2 of the big 3 from California. We had FC there. I believe we had Center Grove there. We had a few Southern show choirs there. And so it's and this year was my first year ever doing show choir nationals. So I'm very partial to Heart of America. I would say so, but it's been a pretty spectacular year all around. They're kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I could pick between the 2 of them. I think I'm leaning towards HOA, but for the most part, I enjoyed my first ever Show Choir Nationals experience. The competition ran on time, which was amazing, and the groups were spectacular. I would relive that experience again and I will probably be at Show Choir Nationals next year. So yeah.
Good deal. Dobbs, you have any other questions for us?
No, not particularly. I just want to say hey.
All right. Well, thank you,
Say
Dobbs.
to yourself
Dobbs
as well.
frickin' Durkin from Homewood, Alabama. We'll see you.
See you guys.
Cool. I think we have one more caller to bring in and have a quick chat with.
Before we get there, perhaps. Oh, here we go.
Howdy. Welcome. Can you hear us? While we're working on that, there was actually something funny that Dobbs had pointed out. So we all get like our information from you as far as like rankings and analytical stuff. But me and Dobbs, we have such a back and forth on groups that we like to see. We have come up with the funniest name for when a group A goes to a competition and beats group B, but then group B beats group C, and then group C comes back and beats group A later in the season. We call it the Dobbs-Durkin transitive property of show choir. And we've seen this happen over the years, but it finally has a name. And I just wanted to take the time to congratulate Dobbs for his lapse in logic on that front. While we attempt to get our next caller in, Dobbs, I just want to give you a quick shout out. You're amazing. Thank you for being the force that you are. And quick shout out to the warm-up room who have been doing their cool new show choir podcast in the South that you can check out on Spotify. Do we have our caller ready? Okay. I don't know if we'll be able to get our caller.
Can you guys hear me now?
Oh, I think we will be able to get our caller on. Yeah.
We got one more coming in maybe, but just a reminder that if you do want to be a guest, this is probably the last call for that. So head over to that Discord server at the link that you see at the bottom of your screen, and we can get you on the show. Hopefully we'll be able to get our next caller in here pretty quickly. But until we get to that point, Bradley, I did just want to touch on one more thing, and hopefully I won't show you up here. You did get the chance to be a commentator for HOA Orlando a couple weekends ago, and one of the programs there was Boulder Creek Broadway Bound and Heart and Soul. And they actually hosted Arizona's first ever show choir competition this year. It happened on February 25th. It was the Boulder Creek Show Off in the Desert. And it's really cool to see show choir growing in Arizona. Unlike Colorado, where there had kind of been a state-sanctioned festival for a while, Arizona, there had just been nothing for a long time. And so Boulder Creek, kind of on that north side of that Phoenix metro, they hosted a grand total of 13 groups, which I think is a very respectable count for your first ever competition. All groups were from Arizona. We saw some new groups such as Paradise Honors High School Wildfire, such as the return of the Horizon Step on Stage group, which is a group that has won some competitions before. And the overall winner of the competition was Valley Vista Vocal Thunder, who is really making waves whenever they step into California, as they do once or twice a year. So Bradley, just tossing it to you. You saw Boulder Creek, both their groups at HOA Orlando. What did you think of the Arizona style of show choir?
I absolutely love it. I mean, it was spectacular, and we get the Western vibe. So we get the California feel for them in terms of vocals. It is also closer to a very classic show choir show. So it's weird. So with California, you expect the really big and elusive sets, and you expect the tremendous singing and dancing. With Arizona, we got the pop vocal. I mean, they had it on lock. And then in the choreography front, at the beginning, it's more reserved, a little bit more just holding back on us so that we can make each small move mean more, and we can focus on the vocals. It's almost like they started with the ballad, which was really cool. But as the show started to pick up, it started to get more and more tremendous, and they changed choreography styles several times, and it was honestly super cool to see a group from a state that you didn't think show choir existed in perform, and not only perform, but jump into finals. And it was also their first competition of the season, which is super impressive. So shout out to Boulder Creek. Both groups were simply amazing. I believe their women's group was the group that did a Barbie thing. So they were the other Barbie show that I got to see.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it is always just so great to just kind of pop out and see those groups that perhaps you weren't expecting to see, because even I think when you go to a competition, you have a rough idea of who's going to be there. But then when someone just jumps out at you totally out of left field, it's always super great to see. I think we have reached the close of our show. I don't think have any takers on the last opportunity to call in. So Bradley, I just want to say thank you so much for being my co-host today. You run a very wonderful podcast, the Southern Shows podcast, which is available on Spotify. I believe it is the most rated show choir podcast in the country. So that is quite the title to have. As you mentioned earlier, you are also a freelance choreographer. So if you are in the South or not the South, if you're in the Midwest and you want to hire him, go hit him up, davisdancedemonstrations@gmail.com. Bradley, anything else that you want to close the show out with?
This is such an amazing plug. Thank you. I got to give Will his flowers too. Will has done some tremendous work throughout, not only in the upper Midwest, the entire Midwest. He's synced into the South with us, and we're glad to have him. He's even reached over into California. He runs an impressive lineup of different programs, including Homeroom Show Choir, and of course he has his podcast on Wisconsin Show Choir Download, which is simply amazing. The content on there is expansive. Like while I'm doing my much needed research, I will definitely be using your podcast as a source to help guide me along the way, so that I can figure out the next time we do this, I can say, yes, in fact, I do know that there is a show choir on Jupiter that has been competing for the past few years that I didn't know about. And so Will is amazing. He has been a tremendous help throughout the season. And I met him in person for the first time at Wheaton, Warrenville, and I'm glad to have shared this experience with you, Will. You're a great person. You're an amazing analyst, and I find you to be probably the most reliable individual in the show choir world at the current moment. So please keep an eye on him. He's got programs. I think you have so many things in show choir going on. Like, you were able to name the one thing that I was doing. What is it? Is it the podcast? It's homeroom, show choir nation. It just, the list goes on and on. So yeah, plug the rest if I missed anything.
Yeah, well, it's basically just the big three that you mentioned. The Wisconsin Show Choir download now in its fifth season, wrapping up the fifth season, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Player.fm, and wherever you get your fine podcasts. Homeroom Show Choir, the nation's leading show choir content outlet. We've got a dozen staff writers this year, and it's just been a blast to cover all different areas of the country. We got our New England staff writer, Michael James Breen, who corrected me in the YouTube chat. It's Bishop Hendricken, who has the dentist show and not Tatanskwa. So I saw that comment, and I've been waiting to drop that. All the way out to our California staff writer, Chris Mendoza. We've got pretty much the entire country covered, and so that's a blast. Show Choir Nation is our live podcast. We do that every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. So watch for that this upcoming Monday. Instagram.com/homeroom SC for that. And those are pretty much the big three. A couple other thank yous that I want to give real quick. Thank you to everybody who participated, whether you called in like Dobbs, whether you were one of our guests like Lucy or Chris, or whether you're just watching, you're in the YouTube chat. Thank you to everybody. If you stuck around for these 2 hours, you're definitely a real one. So that is absolutely something to be lauded for. Thank you to Hawken for putting this together, for coming up with the concept, all of the animations. He is our main producer. Thank you to Blake for being our engineer. Blake has worked tirelessly to do more of the behind the scenes stuff and to make sure that this show goes on smoothly as well. Thank you to all the performers who have given us great shows to talk about, because this would be a really boring show if we didn't have all these fantastic shows to talk about. So whether you were from Biloxi, whether you were from Indianola, whether you were from Center Grove, whether you were from wherever, thank you for giving us great content to talk about. And just one final note, the show choir season is not done yet. We've got California still in full swing. We've got a big battle at Oceanside that we talked to Chris Mendoza about. We've got Colorado states coming up. We've got North Carolina states coming up. We've got the Waltham Eastern Show Choir Festival coming up. We've got Show Choir Canada Championships coming up. We've got Jenks Show Choir Invitational coming up. And there is still so much show choir for this season. So Bradley, any final closing thoughts?
Final closing thoughts. I just want to take the moment to, I guess, piggyback off what you're saying and congratulate all the students for the hard work that they've done this year and the work that they're going to continue doing as the season goes along. If you want to follow the competitive circuit in the South is pretty much done, but we do a fun thing called Southern Show Choir Grammys. If you want to follow us, check the social tab on the Show Choir website, and you are able to give your input. If you've been following the South at all, then we'll have a special show for them to recognize them as well. But no, it's been an amazing season, and thank you all for coming to the 2024 Show Choir Wrapped. Will, any more thoughts?
Nope. Thank you, everyone, so much. And hopefully we will see you at the end of a successful 2025 season. Have a great Sunday, everyone.